this computer. Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Tim Errickson. I am the artistic director of the Boomerang Theater Company, and I am here with three friends of mine, Lipica Shah, wave, there she is, Jared Field, there he is, and Jessie Field down there. Fantastic. We're so excited to have the three of you here today. I'm going to read a little introduction about three so people know who you are and who they have the pleasure of listening to today. Jared and Jessie Field are an award-winning New York City music theater team. They have written book, music, and lyrics for numerous projects, included La Mopa, which was the winner of the 2018 International Moot Competition and was an audience favorite at the 2017 Fresh Fruit Festival, and Rachel, which was a 2018 JDT Lab Selection and the Outstanding Musical at the 2015 Fresh Fruit Festival. Jessie has also written a Theater for Young Audiences play, To the West, which was a finalist in the Growing Stages New Play Reading Festival. Jessie is a co-showrunner and cast member of Is This Art Now, a musical web series, and she recently earned her MFA from NYU's Tisch Graduate Musical Theater Writing Program. Woo, that's exciting. Woo. Jared is a composer, conductor, music educator, and clarinetist. In addition to his musical theater work, Jared also writes classical, chamber music, and choral music, as well as plays for music and dance pieces. And finally, Lipica Shah is a New York City-based actor, singer, voice actor with a passion for new play development. She has originated roles at American Conservatory Theater, California Shakes, Manhattan Theater Club, The New Group, and Mixed Blood, among others. She recently co-founded a very exciting thing called the 1497, an initiative to support and uplift talent of South Asian descent and challenge their underrepresentation in the American film and television industry. Yes, welcome.
Yes.
That's awesome. So,
hey.
How are you all doing? What is going on? Among other things.
Well, it is Wednesday.
It is? Wait a minute, hold the phone.
I know it is Wednesday. And so that's how we're doing today.
Right. We're recording this on Wednesday, July 22nd. So,
see, I didn't even know the rest of it. I just knew it was Wednesday.
Yeah, for any of those people who are keeping track of days and time, we still believe it to be true.
Yeah. It is, as Jared and Jessie and I have had a couple reconnections over the past couple weeks, and we've been opining about how, strangely, we're all much busier now than we were pre-pandemic. Although at least for myself, I'm still very unemployed, so I don't know what happened. But, I'm hanging in there.
Jared, how about you?
How are you guys?
About the same. I'm totally surprised that it is Wednesday. I thought yesterday was Saturday all day. I'm very grateful to be employed as a teacher, and we're starting to think about how the fall may or may not look. So this summer has been a lot of, extra meetings and a lot of planning and a lot of soul searching and a lot of thinking of how do you teach music in a pandemic when you have to wear a mask and when you don't want to, play a tuba in a small basement classroom. So doing a lot of work on that, and I'm also about to work at a virtual summer camp, music directing Spamalot Young at Part, which is the junior version of Spamalot. So I think that's going to be an absolute blast. And I'm trying to, stay sane and compose and, figure out what day it is like everybody else.
Sure. Yeah. Jessie, how about you?
Yeah, heck, yeah, exactly the same. Time has no meaning. I'm so proud of Lipica for knowing it's Wednesday. That's nice to know. I'm unemployed, but busier than ever also. I think that I create busyness for myself to stay alive. So, we're hanging in there. I think, I'm fortunate enough to have a place to be and wonderful people to talk to, just to make things happen wherever we can.
That's awesome. So, the three of you are here today because of a project that we worked on collectively together for a moment last summer called Voices at Tulia. There's Voices at Tulia, Voices of Tulia?
Voices of Tulia.
Of Tulia, fantastic. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about that project and what has become of that project since we spoke?
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah, we should. That's why we're here.
Let's do that.
So let's see, how did this start? I read this book a couple years ago called Tulia. It's this tome of investigative journalism by Nate Blakesley, and it tells the story of this drug bust that happened in Texas in the late 90s in the town of Tulia, in which about 20% of the adult Black population of the town was rounded up in a raid, charged with a collective, was it 900 years in prison?
I think so, over 900.
Based on the testimony of one white undercover officer, despite the fact that there was no evidence, witnesses, notes, nothing. And many of them had alibis. It was a whole thing. Cut to 3 years later, Vanita Gupta, then a 26-year-old fresh out of law school civil rights attorney working for the LDF, hears about the cases and is like, something is wrong, I would like to help, goes to Tulia and works with folks on the ground and people back in New York and DC to get the cases overturned, which ultimately she does. So I was really struck initially by her because I didn't know anything about her, and turns out she was, Obama's AG of civil rights, so she's kind of a big deal now. But I don't, I don't see very many South Asian protagonists in the musical theater world, let alone the theater world or the film and TV world. And I was really interested to get to know what the inside of her head looked like, what drove her to go to the middle of Texas, tiny place, and do this. It was her first big case. And how, in the face of such long odds, she was able to persevere. And Jared and Jessie and I had just worked on Rachel together, and I noticed that they have this habit of writing musicals about unsung female heroes. So I approached them and was like, I have this book. What do you think?
And then I read the book, and it enraged me. That these things had happened, that this had all happened so recently. I mean, now it feels like we're in a different time period for sure. But when I read the book, these drug busts happened in 1999 and the cases were overturned in just 2003. And it was not the distant past. It was now that this was happening. And I think it was a moment really of waking up for me. And I think a lot of us are waking up now. Yeah. So I'm honored to have a little bit of a head start thanks to Lipica. But I think when you hear a story like this, there's something that just draws you to, you want to tell everybody because you can't believe it happened, that it was happening, that it is happening still right now today. It's not the past, it's the present. And there really felt like a sense of immediacy to telling this story. And as Lipica knows, yes, I truly love to write historical women in any and all contexts. My favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
And so then, so you guys have the book, and then what happens?
So, Jessie and Jared are a delightful brother-sister duo that actually get along, and like really well. And so we started brainstorming. We started, fooling around with ideas. Jessie and I would write something. I've never written anything before in my life. So I've found a very steep learning curve. Jessie and I figured out that she's amazing at, like, if we brainstorm, the three of us, and we have like an outline or an idea, she's brilliant at taking that idea and like magically like turning it into a scene, which I sat in front of my computer and stared at it for a long time and like tried to will a scene into existence, and didn't work so well.
Lipica is a visionary and a brilliant editor, and when I would just block things out very loosely and neatly, Lipica knew exactly where to take it and how to refine it and how to really keep it focused on wherever we were trying to go.
So we figured out our groove, and then we learned that we could speak to Jared in like colors and feelings, and then he would turn that into music, and it was magic.
That's incredible.
We had a great week where we had our own writers retreat in my apartment in Worcester, and we would like meet together, and they'd be like, this song should be purple, and then move to navy blue, and I'd be like, okay, purple, navy blue, and I'd go into my room for like 3 or 4 hours, and they would do their thing and I would do my thing, and I'd come back and I'd have a little demo and be like, what do you think about this? And they'd be like, oh, it should be a little bit like a lighter shade of purple. And then I'd go back and try. That week we wrote like a ton of stuff in that 1 week. It was really an incredibly productive week. And it's fun to be able to do our process together because, as you can see, we are all in 3 different places most of the time. So it was great to be together physically and have that time to, immediately get feedback and work together.
The days, same
Those
room.
were the days
Yeah.
when we could be in the same place.
Oh my God.
I will say what sort of was the catalyst was we've been talking about it, and then it turned out Vanita Gupta was speaking at Jared and Jessie's alma mater, Brandeis, and the 2 of them used their alumni connections and finagled us a seat in the audience when she was speaking. And so the 3 of us tried really hard to like hide our fangirl and like be cool. But we had communicated with her through this event and had let her know like what we were thinking of, and kind of like wanted to get her blessing and find out what she thought of this project, and before we started to work on anything. And she spoke about her time in Tulia at this talk. And we were just like furiously writing notes because one of the things she emailed back to us was like public domain. Like she's a lawyer, and she was like, if I say the words, you can use them. And I was like, yes, you are saying words right now. Great. And we got to speak with her after the event, which was just like, the 3 of us were just trying to form complete sentences because she's just such an inspiring person who has done so many amazing things and is like fighting the good fight. So that really propelled us to start to put some thoughts on paper.
That's so
and then
once she knew about it and sort of said, yes, that sounds cool, I'd take my mom if it ever happens.
Yeah.
We were very much like, well, now we have to. All right.
Yeah, you're on the hook now.
No backing out now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need his mom needs to see this guy.
Right. Right. And then from our Worcester Academy retreat, we worked throughout I don't even remember what year that was. How long ago was that?
What are years?
3 years ago?
I think it was 2018. Is that right?
Might be right. That might be right. But we had a reading of a first draft in my apartment at the end of that year with some friends we'd invited to read the roles just so we could hear it out loud. And we heard it out loud and we realized that it was not at all what we had intended to do. Somehow we'd like followed this path that was wrong.
Wait, can we talk about that for a second? Like, what happened?
Absolutely. What I love so much about this piece is it's facilitated so much personal growth for me. And I think now, I'm sure we'll talk more about this later, it's a moment to really self-reflect and evaluate your own behaviors. Because what we learned in that first reading, we were shocked to hear how much the white characters, this was at a time when there were white characters in the script. It was more of a literal events sort of bio
timeline, history.
And of course, we were there to raise up the voices of color, and somehow the white people wouldn't shut up. I remember we were sitting there looking at each other like, who did this? Why is this happening?
And also, we had gotten so bogged down in trying to explain the legalese, and like, because the thing is, this whole thing is so bizarre because of the way it wound its way through the legal system. Like, all this stuff was allowed. The legal system allowed this, and not that that's surprising because that happens so often, but anyway, we got really bogged down in some legal things, and we were like, well, this is what oops, okay, we take it all back. This was draft 1. We got that out of our systems. Great.
Fascinating. From a creator standpoint, that's a fascinating moment to be in. When you think you've made X and you turn out and you've got orange, and you're like, I don't know how we got here. This is not,
Yeah.
I think that happens a lot with our historical pieces. Is we always have a first draft that's like Rachel. It was like 3 hours long, and it was like Rachel, the biography on stage, and it was like, okay, here's the story. And same thing with Pan. It was like, here's her entire life. So then it's like finding, well, where's the story? Even if there are so many interesting facts that you want to know, but it's like if you want to hear the facts, read the book. And story, we'll work on that. So
Right. So it was like, why was this a theater piece? We have just put the book on stage. Oops. So we went back. I mean, everybody who had read in that reading was so gracious with their feedback, and we were all like, yes, yep, absolute, yes.
Such a good team who really were generous with their feedback and were so open to us learning. And I learned tremendously. And I love these two guys because they're so willing. We're so willing to start over and to come at things from new angles when it's not right. And I think that's huge for me collaboratively.
So at that point, what do you guys do? Do you throw the whole thing out and start again, or do you just like start paring down the 3 hours into whatever it is into what you keep?
Yeah, we had a moment where we were like, we have framed this the way the book frames it, and because the book has this like narrative voice, that's sort of how we had defaulted, which was not what we had intended to do. And so we tried to invert it. So same story, same linear type of world, but who is the one being the narrator? And that was the version that we worked on with you and Boomerang. After we had sort of ripped it apart and put it back together in a different format, where we had decided, you know what, we're gonna just have all actors of color. Why not? Why can't actors of color play act and tell us how they would tell the story? So that was what we were experimenting in draft 2, which had a lot of successful moments, I think, and then a lot of other things that we learned at the reading.
Yes.
Again,
So that's as far as I know with it. So what happened after that?
Then, well, over the summer,
true.
The world changed. Well, Jared and Jessie went to Fresh Ground Pepper's BRB retreat last summer, or Jared and Jessie went. I was working on a show in San Francisco, and I could not go, but I was there.
Very spotty internet as much as we could with daily updates.
Yeah.
I think we called you at one point, didn't we, or something? I remember calling and being like holding on speakerphone for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, we tried. We made it work with technology in the pre-pandemic. See, and I feel like, I mean, you guys could speak more to this, but my feeling from the draft that emerged after that was that it was much more focused on personal internal voices, because the large takeaway we got from Boomerang and the artists who work with us there was the piece is called Voices of Tulia, and we don't hear very many of those voices. We thought that is a really great point. Let's explore that. And so that was largely what the FGP retreat seemed for me, and you guys can speak more to that.
Well, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And I think it was really, it was freeing for us to move away from the linear narrative and to sort of break down the most successful moments, I think, in the Boomerang reading were some of the least literal moments when the actors were allowed to have the most fun, because this is theater and not a movie that we're doing on a stage. So as we moved away from literal retellings and created a lot more moments where we stepped into characters' voices in non-literal abstracted ways. And that was becoming really fun and interesting for us at the time.
We made sort of an open mic section towards the beginning where, like, Benita, literally brings a microphone and puts it on stage and says, here's my story, I'm going to tell you about my past. And then all of the main defendants come up and tell kind of their story. And each kind of had its own different, musical character to represent their different, ages and different places in life and their different stories. And until we jump ahead a little bit to where we are now, all of our stories kind of ended with like, but then I got arrested. Did you know that I too got arrested? And did you know that things are really unjust and things are unfair? Even though like the songs are really about like this person opened this amazing bar called Funzapoppin' and had pool tables and jukeboxes and became this community center. And this person was on a baseball team, and like all of these different stories that we kind of like undermined at the end. And so I'm kind of jumping in our story, but
yeah, we realized that we were really hammering home this like something bad really happened, guys, it was bad. Did you know that it was bad? Like, and at the same time, there was this growing awareness in the world of things that the Black community has known for years, that of just how deeply entrenched the problems in our justice system are, the problems with the police, the problems with everything. So we were starting to question whether we were the right people to be telling this story, why we had wanted to tell this story in the first place, and then what to do about that. Because my current favorite phrase is, why do you want to tell this story? And why do you want to tell this story? Because those are very different things. And I had this moment of reckoning where I was like, I wanted to tell this story because I wanted to play this character because I think Vanita's really great. And I never see those characters. I never get the opportunity to play those characters. So that'd be really fun. And I was like, is that a good enough reason to write this musical? No, that feels, so let's re-examine what our motivations were, what our intentions were, and are we the right people to do this? I don't know. So we're sort of, we've been having a lot of those conversations.
This is very recently we've begun to dive in here. We sort of took a break from the project because we were so dang busy. I was swamped at grad school. Lipica is an amazing working actress who had wonderful jobs, and Jared has to corral all his students.
Well, it gave me time to catch up and finish the first draft of the
Right,
score.
Jared
So that was nice for me.
Jared did the most while me and Lipica were very...
That was all going to be thrown away anyway, but it was nice to just get caught up.
But Jared did complete a version of the score, which is lovely with beautiful music that we will rethink now. And we sort of came back together just recently in the pandemic to look at this project, because I think quietly we were all growing increasingly uncomfortable, you know, not sure of if this was the story we should be telling, if what right we have to tell it, if we're going to do a good job. And I think that this is really a moment in time for self-reflection and really looking at why you do things and what you've done. And good intentions are great, but also doing actual good is much better than just wanting to do good. And we're really in a place of looking at the piece brand new and seeing what still makes sense. I think this week we really were struggling with, or not struggling, we were sort of friendly laughing about how much the piece is like, this was horrible, as Jared said. Did you see how horrible this is? With the way the world is now, it's kind of like we know, and we don't want to sit in those places of trauma.
Yeah, and we don't want to create a piece where we're providing BIPOC actors yet again with an opportunity to perform trauma on stage. You know, that feels like that is the only opportunity BIPOC actors get quite often. And so why are we perpetuating that? Like, how can we change that? So we're just wrestling with, like, why is it that so many of the BIPOC stories that are allowed to be told in the American theater have trauma at their core? And that is the thing that the largely white American audience, white American theater going audience is exposed to, and then gets to absolve themselves of at the end, because there's usually some kind of bow or happy ending in musicals. So we were like, we totally fell into that system because we all do. We have unconscious biases, all of us, and we're all part of this structure that has been problematic for some time and is only now recently coming, you know, people are talking about it recently. So I think it was just yesterday we had a conversation where we decided, you know, let's start listening through the score that Jared put together and just see what inspires us. Like, what, maybe this is not the piece we do. Maybe we stop and we write something else. Maybe we invite other people to work on this piece with us. Maybe there's a different way to tell this story. Maybe we can give actual power to the voices that were silenced for so long, you know? So we're exploring a lot of those ideas, and I don't know where it's going to end up.
That's awesome. I mean, that's as much as I love the work that you guys are doing, I fully respect that you guys are self-aware enough to know that, you know, what feels right sometimes isn't always right, and what is right sometimes doesn't always feel right. Like, how do you figure those things out? And you figure them out by doing them in real time and making mistakes and going back and thinking on it and whatever. And I applaud the three of you for really going through that process together and sort of trying to make hard, brave choices about the work you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm so grateful for these two guys right here, because I think when we first started talking over the pandemic, when we finally came back to this for real, the first thing we kind of exhaled and said was like, we don't have to do this. You know, just the freedom to know that we've been working on it for years, but if it's not correct, I know that we as a team are going to do what is right and what feels right as we continue to figure out what right is.
Yeah, I mean, nobody.
For me too, it's made me think about like, you know, not just this project, but like art making in general, and like, what do I, as, you know, a white male artist, have to say in this world, you know, in general, and why, you know, why is my voice one that I should even be, like, why am I an artist, period, basically, is sort of what I'm thinking about. Because I do think that, you know, as a white male, I have a responsibility to use my privilege to advance stories of people who are not often sung. But it's, how do you do that, and in what ways can I do that responsibly, where it's not, you know, putting trauma on stage? And you know, we don't have the answers. You know, I think we're still thinking. I think that Vanita is you know, remains kind of our rock through the story, and you know, one possible way might be to focus on her journey as an ally through the story. And I think that in a lot of ways, what we already have there sort of mirrors, I think, our own learning and journeys, because we kind of started off too with like law, legal, you know, white lawyers talking about white law legalese. And then it was like, oh my God, these stories of these defendants are so horrible, and let's just like wallow in this sorrow because it's so horrible. And now it's like, okay, well, what are we really gonna do? And that sort of mirrors Vanita's journey, I think, too. So yeah, that's something I think a little bit.
I think that the world at large, and probably a lot of whom go to the theater, are learning what performative allyship is right now. And I feel like we have been, with this piece and in life in general, we're charting that journey for ourselves. Like, you can have the best of intentions, but your intentions don't matter. It's the outcome of your actions that matter, the impact of your actions. And so I feel like as artists, as theater makers, we have a responsibility to question our own intentions and our own actions, because we're a community. And, you know, it's really, I wish that we lived in a world in which the powers that be were, you know, had that kind of self-awareness, but it's really on individual people right now to make choices for themselves and set those boundaries. Yeah. So we're going to see where this goes.
So let's transition for a second to, because I think you guys have spoken very eloquently about the work you're doing and the project that you were working on and may work on again. When you guys are working either collectively or individually, what's the process like? Do you, I know that you, Lipica and Jessie spoke about their version of it, and then wrapping Jared in colors and letting sort of come back with that. Is that the normal process for the three of you, or is that something that just happened on this project?
This is our only project together.
Fantastic.
We've worked, Lipica's a wonderful actress, which is how we met her, and she's worked with us before, and I think we always knew that the three of us got along famously. And I think the hardest part, because I work collaboratively a lot, and what's really unique about this collaboration for me, I mean, I work with Jared all the time. He's
Sure.
I'm so conveniently born into my own house, and I'm very lucky and grateful for that.
In my house, technically.
Oh, whoa. Oh.
All right, older brother. He is older than me, yes. But the way that I work with Lipica is unique. I usually am in a lane. Like, I work as a lyricist a lot, who writes the lyrics, and then within the confines of a book. But this is one of the most collaborative ways that I've ever worked. Me and Lipica will sit in a room together. We used to. Those were the days, my friend. And we would really talk through things, and we would really write together in the room, in a way where it's just truly like we wrote the words, both of us. Yeah. And you're not sure where it begins or ends. And it's true, I do more of the blocking out, and Lipica does more of the fixing up and making good, which I profoundly appreciate. But I think that's kind of what's fun with each specific project. You find a specific way to work at it and what works for you.
Even with Rachel, you know, when we met Lipica, she was one of our actors in Rachel. She played Marie Rodell, Rachel Carson's literary agent. And even as an actor, she provided incredible insight into the character, incredible insight into the work as a whole. And her character's song changed, I think, at least like 2 or 3 times. And I worked with her to find a song that would work great for her voice and that would work great for the way she wanted to play the character. It started off as a song about juggling. It became a song about like chess pieces. So it was, even Lipica has always been so collaborative, and that's why we were so excited to work with her as a co-writer on this project, because from the moment we met her, we really valued her.
Got that brilliant dramatic mind.
And her incredible mind, yes.
I mean, I really love working on new plays, truly. It's like, it took me many years to figure out that is the thing I wanted to do. And then it's really wonderful to find people like Jessie and Jared to work with who are not afraid to kill their darlings, because that I find is the hardest part about collaboration. If someone like me comes in and is like, well, this part isn't like ringing true in the way that I understand the character, like having, working with folks who are open to molding and adjusting and fixing is really, really delightful.
Yeah.
It's also great to have an actor on the team, because I am definitely not an actor, and so when I'm trying to like read something, I'm like, it doesn't work. But then the people can look at it and instantly just be like, da, 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 and it's like amazing, and it's like, oh, that's what it sound like. So
That is
even musically too, she'll say like, I think like this part needs more time or this part needs less time, because she's thinking like an actor, and it just gives me that perspective that I don't always have. So
yeah. When Jared and Jessie, when you guys are working on music, do you start with lyrics first and then add melody to it afterwards, or do you ever start with the music first and then write lyrics to it afterwards?
We have done both. I think mostly we work text first, and that is because Jared is my favorite kind of composer, and that is the kind of composer that really works very specifically. And so he likes to know what's going on so that he can color every measure with the specific flavor of what's going on. But we have some of our best songs together, buddy, are like, we're music first. Where you follow your emotional heart, and I like to solve the puzzle of how it all fits inside.
I think for me, it's like, it has to start with like the story first, whether it's like through text or not. Like the song that I'm thinking of is our big love duet from Maupin was music first, and we, I started with just that even though we didn't have the exact words, I think we tried with words first and it wasn't really working, and then I just thought, okay, well, this is like the first time after a whole journey of this woman trying to find love with so many different people, and mostly finding lots of sex but not necessarily love, first feeling that love, this deep love for someone at the opera, and that's kind of where they came from. And then Jessie brilliantly found, wrote lyrics that fit it perfectly. So I think that idea of story, that's where the meaning really comes from. I think when I start with text, I try to figure out, okay, well, what is this text really saying? Where is it going? What are they really feeling when, even though this is what they're saying? But it's all about story. And I think that has to come first.
It seems like you both really have a very keen sense of the dramatic story, even though Jared's writing music and Jessie's writing lyrics and book. Like, you both have a very keen sense of narrative and and character in a lot of ways. When you put those elements together, both of you serve that well, it seems like.
Yay! That's all we want in the world.
Good. My work here is done. Thank you very much.
No, I think that's the most important thing. Everything always has to serve the story, and that's a value that Jared and I luckily share.
Yeah, I mean, Jared definitely.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm remembering when we were at Worcester Academy, and the three of us were trying to come up with, like, trying to nail down a sort of outline of the story we wanted to tell. And Jared was very much a part of that. He wasn't a hands-off composer at all. It was great to have his insight on, like, oh, well, if we do it this way, then like musically this could repeat, and like, oh, we could bring that theme back. And so there was a wall of his apartment that was just covered in color-coded index cards and made my secret organizing brain very happy.
I really think that, like, we do think differently, and I think it's because I think music is like my first language, and so sometimes I'll try to say something in words, and Jess and the people will be like, "What? What are you talking about?" But then, like, I think that see, again, can't really speak English. You get the idea. But you know, I think that different way of looking at the same story through a musical lens and through a words lens helps us, you know, develop that full picture more. And I think also it helps making the killing your darlings part of the process a little easier, because there might, you know, there have been dozens and dozens of like songs that as songs are so beautiful from all of our projects that we've had to kill, you know, because they just weren't right for the story. And it doesn't mean that the song wasn't beautiful, but it's just not serving the story. And I know there's plenty of darlings, you know, that will be, you know, the floor, you know, below me here is just covered in like,
covered in darlings. When the three of you are working either independently or together, is there and you hit a block, whether it be because like someone asks you to go deeper on a role and like, you know, you're finding hard to sort of get to that place, or musically you're trying to crack it, or you're trying to, you know, find a, you know, a character moment from on the writing end, and you're having a tough time. Is there a piece of advice that sort of you'll often come back to, or a mantra that sort of helps you sort of crack through or push through to break whatever it is that's holding you up? Who wants to go first? Jump in.
I'll go. I have so I have a couple things. I think there's often this thought of like you have to write what inspires you, and like when you're feeling inspiration, you have to go for it. And I think that that's true. I think when you feel inspiration for something, you have to follow it. But I also think that there's something about just doing the work, even if you don't feel like it, even if you don't feel inspired, to be like, you know, I'm gonna write today. I've done a couple of like week-long workshops for choral composers, where you write an entire like lengthy choral piece in like 5 days, and it's like you have to just do it, and then I'm surprised at what you can create. And the analogy that I think of is that someone said at one of these institutes I went to was like turning on the tap water of a faucet and letting all like the brown gunky water come out before the clear water comes out. Like you have to get out the gunk sometimes before you get to what you want to write. The last couple months, like we said before, I was really kind of playing catch up to, because when we did the reading with you, I had written maybe like half of the music, maybe. So I had a lot of music to catch up, and there were some songs that were very, you know, legally very wordy. I was like, where's the music in this song? And sometimes you're like, okay, I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna look at the words and I'm gonna look for patterns, and you have to just go. And some of those songs are now some of my favorite songs musically, because, you know, like you stumble on something when you don't even hear it necessarily. So I think it's just doing the work and setting aside time to do the work, while also being willing to follow those moments where you are inspired, because those have happened too.
Yeah, I'd say like both with this, because again, very new to writing, very steep learning curve. With this and in my actor life, I have learned that sometimes I just need to leave it, you know, like stop thinking about it, go for a run, go do something else, let my subconscious work through whatever it might be. I am a big fan of distance running, and so I'll often just go for a really long run. I don't listen to music. I just let whatever is turn. And sometimes that results in an idea or an epiphany or something I want to try. And sometimes it takes a couple days, and I have to trust that the block will end. That there is it'll happen. I just don't know when.
True. Yeah. I have two things I do. One is a little weird. One, I think water helps you write. This is something that Winnie Wolfman said to, she spoke at my graduate program once, and she talked about like sometimes if you just take a shower or like wash the dishes or interact with water, there's something about that. I have great ideas in the shower, and it's because I'm trapped in the shower and like I can't, there isn't a way out, that you have those ideas. But there's something about interacting with water, hear me out, that I think that does work. But less insane is I always turn to my collaborators if I get really stuck. And I used to be Jared knows. I used to be a writer who was very secretive, and I'd be like, Jared, write Rachel with me. You said yes. Okay, I'll get back in touch when the script is done.
In 1 year, after a whole year of research, and
I was so self-conscious. But I started writing with Jared when I was 19, which I guess It was so long ago. And I've changed to know that the people you work with, they're who you rely upon. And I'm so lucky to work with these two. And I've met so many wonderful collaborators at graduate school. And when I'm stuck, I call them and I'm like, let's talk.
Yeah.
And usually there's some way out of it. I'm a real believer in there are so many roads to Rome when you're writing a piece of art. There's not one correct answer. There are many, and there's so many ways to tell a story, and so many of them are good. And I think it's so great that there are so many artists in the world. I think we can't have enough art because there are so many ways to tell so many stories, and we need them all.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to resonate with who. And when it does resonate, then we all feel less alone. And isn't that what it's all about?
Yeah, I love that idea of so many roads to Rome. I think that's a great turn of phrase too, in terms of just the artistic process. You know, I think in grad school right now, we're getting sold on structure and it has to be this way and the beat and all this stuff. And like, you know, I think we're learning that you learn that so you can break it apart and get wherever you got to go, however you got to get there.
Yes. Oh my God. And I feel that so hard. I was just waiting until they let us break rules in grad school. Rules all the time.
Yeah.
But it's good to know them. It's good to know them.
Yes.
And break.
So, speaking of breaking rules and causing good trouble, I think let's talk about 1497.
Let's talk about 1497.
Yeah.
Sure. So 1497 is a new initiative that I've launched with two friends and partners in crime, Adil Ahmed and Cameron Khan. And it is a new initiative to support South Asian, talent of South Asian descent, I should say, and challenge their underrepresentation in the American film and television industry. So this is, the overall initiative seems quite broad and a little daunting if I think about it too hard. But as someone who is South Asian American, I often feel like I am stuck between worlds, not just in the sense of like tradition and America, but I mean in the way that people categorize me. I'm either, depending on the situation, you're Manasa, so you get those opportunities and roles, and that's the way we see you. Or you're Asian, and you get those opportunities and roles. And there was never a space where I felt like my own stories or voices could be supported. And I felt really strongly about not just creating a community space, but challenging not the individual artists and the industry at large to have that career longevity. Like, how do you get more South Asian writers in the writer's room? And how do you get South Asian creatives to be allowed to tell stories that have nothing to do with South Asia? Like, I want to see an action movie written by a South Asian person. If I never see another storyline about arranged marriage in my entire life, I will be so happy. Like, you know, I want to see different things. And so we launched this initiative to not just provide resources and support for development and individual projects, but also career support. So our first program is called the 1497 Writers Lab. And it's 4 parts. So there will be 3 writers selected. Our applications are open right now until the end of July. And 4-part process. Your script, if you're chosen to be the final 3, you get peer-to-peer feedback. You will go through a deep dive on your script with Adrian Weiss, who is an amazing, amazing script coach, who's going to dig into the like psychology and spirituality of why you are writing this script, not just the context, and whether the context of the script is supporting your why. Partnered with a mentor, our 3 mentors for this year, because we do hope that this lab will be annual. Our mentors this year are Gurinder Chadha, Anish Chagambi, and Mariam Keshevars, who are all brilliant filmmakers in their own right. And then finally, you get introduced to industry folks, agents, managers, reps, because at that point, we hope your project and you are ready to have that introduction to the industry at large. Yeah, I'm really excited about it. And I'm excited also because I'm seeing a lot of institutions that I've been involved with now reckon with the fact that their structures have been upholding not excellent practices. And I've been longing for a way to, I've been trying to retrofit a lot of organizations to embrace more inclusive practices, to be anti-racist, not just, progressive. And so I feel like I have this opportunity right now with my partners to create an organization that has anti-racism, anti-colonialism woven through its foundation, which is exciting to me. 1497, the name, is the year before Western colonization started in the area currently known as South Asia. So that symbolism is really important to me.
Yeah. And where can people find out more about it when they listen to this and they're very inspired and where are they going?
Yes, go to 1497.org. There's more information about us, about our Writers Lab, and if you have a feature film and you identify as someone of South Asian descent, please apply. We have on our website an FAQ that goes into like, what are we defining South Asia as and why, and all these other things. So please take a look, and I'm excited to read everybody's work.
Awesome. This is fantastic. And so in the notes at the bottom of this, I'm going to link the personal websites for the three of you, as well as the 1497 website. So anybody who wants to find out more about your individual work or your work together or the 1497 can check out all of it. I hope that they do. So
great.
Friends, thank you. This has been fun.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
It's so good to see all of you. See people is amazing.
God,
I know. Even virtually, it's still very nice to see you all.
So, all right. Well, thank you so much for your time. Be well, and I hope to see you all very soon.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right.
you.
Bye, you guys.
Bye.
Bye.